Hey everybody, Andy Stickel here. One of the benefits of social media marketing and creating content and providing value is that you become the expert in the room. And what's cool about that is basically that means that whenever someone has a question or a problem or needs a solution, you're going to be the one that they go to. And when you have a large group of people that look at you as the expert, then it's really, really easy to get clients. So we wanted to create a video on this and teach you how to become the expert in the room. And the room is, social media. So I brought in my social media manager. His name's Chris Vanderkay, and he's going to teach you 3 ways that you can become the expert in your room. And what this is going to allow you to do is become perceived as the expert in social media. And by doing so, you're going to be the first choice for people when they need a lawyer for really anything that is related to what you do. So check out this video and let us know in the comments if you have any questions.
Hey guys, it's Chris Vanderkay from Social Firestarter. What I wanted to talk to you about today are the 3 things that you need to do in order to become the expert in the room, which is going to be important to you for the specific kind of marketing style that we talk about here, right? So first, before we get to the 3 points, I'll talk to you about what I mean by being the expert in the room, right? If you've ever played a trivia game or a board game of any kind where they ask questions, or if you've ever gone out to pub trivia, right? If you're with a group of people that you know, there will inevitably be a moment where a question is asked about a specific category, right? Sports, movies, mixed drinks, whatever the category is. And at that point, everyone except one person at the table will all, without planning, all turn at the same time and look at that one person, right? Because they know that one person is going to know the answer. And they know it's simply because this is a category they know a lot about. That is the expert in the room. Now, how does that apply to you as a legal mind? The theory, hopefully you would think that all lawyers are legal experts, right? However, what I'm talking about when I say the expert in the room, I'm talking about what the room is here. In your case, is the client base, the potential client base that you're creating. So that's the people that have seen your ads or your videos, the people that have become part of your email chain, or people who are basically seeing any of the content you're putting out, whether it's written content or filmed content. Those are the people to whom you need to be the expert in the room. That's the whole reason that we create the idea of these niches. In this niche, you're supposed to be the person that is the person in command of this niche. If they think of anything involved in this arena, you should be the person that they think of. So what are the 3 things that we need to focus on that you have to do in order to be the expert in the room? And I'm not necessarily talking about things that you need to know. I'm talking about 3 things that you need to do in order for both you and the client base to believe that you are the expert in the room. So let's talk about what those 3 things are, okay? The first one is surprisingly important, and it's weird that you should necessarily have to mention it, but some people, it's really important that they understand this. You cannot be afraid of what you know. Now that sounds crazy. Why would you ever be afraid of what you know? But you'd be surprised how frequently people are uncomfortable with being rewarded for knowing something, right? If I know a piece of information and I tell someone and they thank me so much, right, because it's super helpful to them, oftentimes a human instinct is to back away from being able to take those accolades, right? To say things like, oh, I just looked it up. It didn't take me that long. Or, oh, it's a pretty common piece of knowledge that blah, 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 right? We find some reason to put this ellipses at the end of it as if to say, well, yeah, I did some, but it wasn't that hard to do it, right? We can't do that. The goal of everything that you're doing is to create yourself as the expert. So anytime that you put out the impression that something that you know is something that could have easily been acquired from anybody who knew how to do a Google search or anybody who's been through years of law school, it defeats the purpose of what it is you're trying to create. And it's also not true. There are a lot of people who don't know what you know. Go ahead, and you don't have to be proud of it. You don't have to brag about it, but go ahead and own it. And when people appreciate what it is that you're giving them, allow them to appreciate it, right? Because that's what's going to want them to come back and ask you another question or hire you on as the expert, is because that's what they believe you to be. And in fact, that is what you are, right? It's not a lie. It's absolutely what you are. That's why you created this niche, is so that you could be that expert. Right? So that's point number 1. Point number 2, this is an interesting one because it's not so much something that you have to do as something that you have to accept, right? And what I mean by that is when someone asks you a question, they have already made you the expert. You have to be able to accept that. What I mean by that is if you're making a video about a subject, your job is not at the beginning to convince someone of why you should answer that question. You're already the person they're watching answer that question. This is one of the things Andy talks about when he says, don't talk about yourself in a video, provide content, right? The reason is not just because, whatever is going on with your life or your experience is boring. That's not the point. The point is they already believe you're an expert. Otherwise, they wouldn't be watching this or they wouldn't be reading what you wrote. They believe you're an expert. So now give them the thing that you're an expert in. Don't waste any time trying to convince them that you're an expert. They already believe that. And arguably, if you spend too much time talking about your accolades or your experience that got you to where you are, it will look a little bit more desperate. It'll look like you think that you need to prove yourself to them. You don't. People who know that they're worth whatever their time or their money is, they don't attempt to prove to people that that's the case. They move on, or they provide the information, right? So it's key for you to look like an expert by treating yourself as someone who already knows that they're an expert. And then the third thing, the final one, I think this is of key importance, because otherwise we will dilute all the work that we've done to create this niche in the first place, which is don't guess or promise outside of your knowledge. Now, I'm not insinuating that any lawyers who are watching this would be providing information that's legally inaccurate or wildly problematic. What I mean is you've created a specific niche in this area. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, if someone calls you and they have a question that's outside of the field of what you're talking about in your videos, of course, you can decide whether or not you want to take the case or not. But what I mean is don't dilute the niche that you create by guessing or promising things that fall outside of the arena of what it is that you're talking about. Because if people are coming to you for a specific thing and then you start wandering off the arena of what it is that you're focusing on, the people who came there for the specific content that you can provide will be upset because they're not getting it anymore, right? And not only that, but it looks good for a professional to know exactly what it is that they are the expert in and to know other experts in other fields, right? So when it's something you know you're not going to take on as a case, rather than spending time talking in theory about something you don't necessarily know all that much about, or at least is not your primary field of interest, saying simply something like, those aren't the cases that I choose to take. However, I have an expert friend who does this or that, right? An expert lawyer who I can point you towards. What that says to them is, I'm not going to waste your or my time talking about a thing that isn't my primary field of interest, but I definitely know somebody who knows all of this, right? So it not only makes you an expert in your field, but it shows that you're a peer with other experts in other fields and that you can point them in that direction, right? So those three key things together, right? The first one being, don't be afraid of what you know. I'm going to reiterate that one because a lot of us, especially as kids, if we were smart kids, we got made fun of for being smart and we still have that knee-jerk reaction to wanting to be able to admit that we're smart. Don't lean away from that. Go ahead and own what you know. The second thing, when someone asks you a question, they've already made you the expert, so don't try and convince them any further that you are. And point number three, the one we just talked about, which is don't guess or promise outside of your field of expertise. So those three things, if you can really lock those down, you can figure out how to become the expert in the room that you're trying to create in your niche that will make everybody at the table, when there's a question about your specific legal field, all of those heads are going to turn towards you.